time to call the March 27th, 2025 Parker Water Board meeting to order. We have from staff, Deborah Lishansky. We have Steve Hellman, Rebecca Tejada, James Roach, Jared Mann, and our manager, Ron Redd. Legal counsel, Nathan Cash. From the board, Bill Wasserman, Brooke Booth, Don Langley, and online is Robert Kana and myself, Merlin Klotz. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any unscheduled items of public interest? Seeing none. Any changes or additions to the agenda?
We have none.
None from the staff. Any from the board?
No.
Thank you, Robert. Any board comments? Yes, Don.
Get close to the microphone, right? I wanted to just give you a quick update on the Douglas County Water Commission. I haven't really talked about that much over the last few months. We're in a phase right now where the water plan has been launched. The consultant's hard at work on that. But we've started a series of presentations to the commission, and the target is the water providers, at least the big water providers. So at our meeting last Monday, Andrea Cole was there from Dominion and did a nice 45-minute presentation on Dominion Water. And you can go back and look at that on YouTube. I mean, some of you that are alternates might want to do that. It was, I thought it was a pretty interesting, and she did a nice job. Next month, we're going to have a representative from Mekarot, which is a Israeli water technology provider. This is something that one of the commissioners wanted to have done. And they're going to talk about what some advances they have in RO processes, so that might be kind of interesting. But in May, the presenters, Mark Marlowe from Castle Rock Water, so that'll be interesting. In June, it's Ron Redd from Parker Water, and Sam Calkins is probably going to follow Ron from Centennial Water. So even if you just kind of do the YouTube thing or watch it online, probably some pretty good presentations on what's current, what's going on with the big, I mean, between those four water providers I just mentioned, that's probably 90-some% of the water delivery in the county. So I thought I'd pass that on. And I received notice today that I've been appointed to a new term, so I get to have fun with the county for another 3 years. Maybe, right?
So, Don, to access this on YouTube, you just put Douglas County Water Commission. How do you find it?
I found it on the Douglas County main website, and kind of clicking through to find the Water Commission page. That's the way I found it. Have you done that, Ron?
Yes, what we'll do is provide you all a link, so you don't have to go search for it, but we'll get
It's
that
not
for
the
you.
friendliest site in the world.
No,
really.
it isn't.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other board comments?
I just wanted to say last week I was online and it was amazing, the audio. I could hear it very clear. Great job.
Good. Good. And you suffered through the early days, and so
Yes. Oh, it was amazing last
that's good to hear. Thank you.
Robert, any comments?
No, I have none. Thank you.
Okay. Leadership team comments.
Okay, I'm up. I have several items today. So, once again, we're just hovering at the 27,000 acre-foot area, and I love that. We get a 7/10 inch of rain this weekend, which will help fill up the reservoirs downstream on the South Platte, which we may not get to keep, but it all that helps because the next rainstorm, then we'll probably get to start pumping. So it's good news. We are in a great position, especially compared to just 3 years ago. So James and his team are doing a good job managing that as well. So I'll just pass that along. Couple things. If you've driven by Reuter Hess entrance, the main entrance, you'll see some work going on. And so this is the rec authority in which the county is the manager, is upgrading the entrance. And you can see the concrete there. And what that is 2 lanes in, 2 lanes out, and they can switch those lanes around, that type of thing. But they're also helping us reestablish the access road grade. Our ditches had started to fill in, and the county's done just an outstanding job on this. I'm very impressed and thankful. Our cost, we had in a budget to do some work on the road. I can't remember the actual cost. Maybe Bill, it's like $140,000.
I think it was something like that.
And our contribution's $50,000. So it gives you an idea how partnerships are really, really important. But I just got to shout out to the county. Their staff is really good. They started this work Monday, and it'll be done tomorrow. So it's amazing. I told them we've been asked to put a sidewalk in, but the cost, we were going to use a Town of Parker contractor, and the cost was close to $150,000. And I worried it's because I told them that's kind of what we have in our budget. And sure enough, it came in about that. The county's got back to us, and they're willing to do it as part of some of the work they're doing in the county for $20,000 to $30,000. So there's some really good savings there. So we'll continue to work on that. Oh, and I should mention, the concrete gets put in this spring as we're going to get recycled asphalt up to the first parking lot. I'd say it's probably a quarter mile up there, and it'll be rolled, so it'll have the feel of an asphalt surface, and they want to do the next chunk in the next year. So I think it would be a great amenity to have out there. All right, the next one, I know I've been talking about the artifacts displays for probably a year and a half now. The good news is they're anticipating those coming in mid-May. May is a it's a month. It's an artifact month. I don't know, but they celebrate artifacts, I guess. But they're trying to get that in there. Again, you can kind of get a sense of what's going in. The wagon is being prepared to come in. The bottom right corner, you can see in the very far wall, there's some display cases going in a timeline. So I think it's going to be a really cool thing for our community, and we do a lot of tours with kids, and so this will be museum quality displays with the information out there, and so we're really looking forward to getting that in there. So the county has requested that we create an event around this, and we're certainly open for that. So come May-ish, we will work with the county, and I'm not sure what an event is. I'm thinking they're more of a public officials gathering, but it could be bigger as well. So we'll work with their PR team as well. So, any questions on that? I found out, I thought that was a water tank on the wagon. It's actually an oil tank, but it's over 100 years old. So I think it was used a lot to service the automobiles back then. Okay, couple other things. Douglas County, the commissioners, I believe it was yesterday or sometime this week, they're going to do a special election I believe it's looking at home rule for a county. Not 100% sure, but it's going that route. They're going to do a special election in June, followed up by an election in November. And I think the June one is to create a large commission to look at what the home rule will look like. And they called us and asked for this back half of the boardroom again. And so it's the exact same contract. We're more than happy. In fact, I love it that before the ink dried on the commissioners' discussion, they were asking us because we are a huge asset for Castle Pines and South Parker. And so before I sign it, I just want to make sure everyone's cool with it. I think it's a great thing. We've adjusted the schedule. We can make it work. They'll be out of here before that board meeting that month. So I'm recommending that we go ahead and sign that contract. And
Consensus?
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
yeah. Where we built the facility, that we could do things like that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's 21's the number of commissioners that will go on that commission to write the charter for the home rule.
okay.
So they got to put the whole charter together, and then the whole county votes on the general election is what they're shooting for. So it's a big, long process and very involved.
It's, well,
Can you imagine
again, I
getting
think
21 people to agree?
what's that?
Can you imagine getting 21 to agree?
Oh, I can't imagine. So again, it's great that they're using it. Kind of a side note to that is we still have an office for the sheriff. We've done multiple tours. It sounds like they're getting more ready to move in. We got a tour coming up in the next couple weeks, and they're ready to start having their staff out here. And again, they have access 24/7, 365, and the office that we reserve for them is over by the lab. They have a parking spot and a quick in and out through the garage door, and so I think it's going to work out really well. So looking forward to that. I did want to let you know that we talked to you about leasing the second floor of the north plant. It feels like forever ago, but we actually have an agreement. Jeff, even though he's on vacation, has been helping us get it tweaked. I say it's going to be signed this week. I think they were hoping I'd sign it today, but I wanted to let you guys know it's ready to go. It falls within the parameters we talked about. Really, the holdup was they're a private company. There's a personal property tax associated with that. We don't pay property tax, but we got it worked out. They were afraid they're going to have to pay personal property tax on the entire facility, which probably be a lot more than the 3,800 square feet of the second floor. So once they got that figured out, then we're good to go. So I don't know when they're moving in, but they're in a hurry, so it's probably going to be in the next few weeks. We'll have them there.
What's the lease rate?
I believe it was a little over $24 a square foot.
Reasonable.
All right, I'm going to turn this over to James.
Okay, good evening. So this is the picture portion of the month. And I wanted to start off with telling you about a rehab that's going to happen at our Bar Triple C pump house. Bar Triple C Reservoir, or Bar Triple C Pond, is on the corner of 20 Mile and Main Street. It was constructed in the mid-'80s, 1985, 86 timeframe. And it was originally used to hold water between Bar Triple C and Regional Reservoir over by Salisbury Park. Salisbury Park, before it was Salisbury Park, was a sod farm. And the water that we produced was of secondary nature, and it was used to irrigate the sod. So we use these two reservoirs in conjunction with the sod farm. That's how we disposed of our effluent back before we had AWT filters. So this is an original facility, and it's in need of upgrade. The pumps in it were used to pump all the way up to regional, but now what we do is we use it to actually capture secondary water when we have to shut down one of our AWT facilities. and then we pump that water back into the sanitary sewer at a controlled rate back to the south plant for treatment through the AWT and discharge to Cherry Creek. So it's secondary water, and it's only Bar Triple C. Regional is all AWT water now, so they're separated and they're not connected, but we still need this pump station, but it is in need of an upgrade. So we've got some parts that need to be fixed on it. This is just some pictures of the facility, give you an idea of what is going on. Inside there was back in the day we used chlorine, so that little building inside the building was used to hold chlorine cylinders, and now it generally holds mice. This is the Motor Control Center. It's about 40 years old, and if you're familiar with old motor control centers, there's actually right here, this is a pen and paper monitoring chart monitor that was on this facility from way back when. And parts are no longer available, obviously, for this control center. There's another shot of the inside. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting one larger pump and one small pump, smaller than these, and more energy efficient. Just a couple of pictures show you the condition, and while it doesn't leak, it is falling apart. So that's it for that facility, but that's going to get started here very soon, and I'll bring back pictures so you get to see what it looks like when we get done rehabbing it.
James,
Yes, sir.
will you be draining down the pond while doing this?
No, it'll be it's basically three parts to it. There's the SCADA and telemetry controls that needs to be upgraded. There's the motor control center and the pumps that need to be upgraded, and then there's the shell that's going to be, and the roof. And the skylights are actually going to be moved so they're over the pumps, so they're actually useful. If you have to pull those pumps, you can actually pull the pumps, because as it stands right now, they're not over the pumps. So this photo, it says Denver Arapahoe. It should say Rooter Hess Arapahoe. I apologize for that. This is a photo of the Rooter Hess Arapahoe well before it gets cleaned. And the reason I brought it to you was because, again, I want to show you what it looks like when it's done. But according to our contractor, this well is actually the most plugged he's ever seen a well in his career. And he's been doing this for, ever since I've been here. He's been here, and probably more than that, so 30 plus years he's been doing it.
Which well is this?
This is the Rooter Hess Arapahoe well.
Thank you.
So it's being pulled to be cleaned, and then I will bring back some photos so you get to see what it looks like. So basically what they do is they'll brush it, they'll use acid, they disinfect it, and in this one they may actually do some jetting inside of it, some high pressure jetting that actually goes through, and it clears these screens to allow the water to once again flow freely. But this, probably a lot of this is iron bacteria, but that's what it looks like when it gets plugged.
Was it still producing okay?
It's still producing water, but it's
Even
in
like
need
that.
of, much like Bar Triple C, it's in need of some maintenance. So there's a kind of a close-up of it. And then I got a couple of pictures in here to show you just some folks. So this was a water system optimization meeting that was held at the water plant. That's Dylan Morgan, and he's going through some of the work that we're going to be doing on tuning what's called the PID loops in our facilities on our pumps. So he's talking to the operators about that. There's everybody in there. There's some work. They're actually putting in sand, micro sand, into the turbo at the water plant. You can see they're wearing respirators because of the mesh size of the sand is actually dangerous to inhale. And then we had a couple operators that went to, I believe it was California, to the Membrane Technology Conference. And then we had some clay valve training. If you recall from the update on 2024, I talked about replacing some of the clay valves with stainless steel pilots. So this was part of the training that the operators have gone through to learn how to replace those pilots with stainless steel throughout our district. And they're in there doing some training. And then we had some overhead crane training, which is required in order to operate we have cranes actually in quite a few of our facilities. This one is at our at our pump and motor building at the South Plant. And they're going through some training and getting overhead crane operator cards so they can operate this safely and move those large pumps around. So I just wanted to share a day in the life. Thank you.
One thing we didn't mention is some of the equipment that you've seen will be part of the artifacts on display with the county stuff. So. What's that? We're working on the pump. They have, it might be at the water plant, but.
Just a couple of updates for you tonight. I wanted to talk about a negative change order that we had. Quite literally. We got a change order from Garney Contractors, and it's actually negative. We have completed the Regional Well House Filtration Annex. It was a highly successful project, and I just want a big kudos to that team. It includes Alex Safranco, who is our project manager. You'll hear from him later about the Riata Well House, as well as Justin Schluter, who is in our audience tonight. Just an opportunity to say thank you to them for all of the good work they've done on this well house. Some of the things that came about and got us to this negative change order. We have a very resourceful team, very open communications about things that could be used more efficiently and better, value engineering, things that were in the original design, but then ended up, we actually didn't need them, so we took them out at the contracting stage. Good relationships with our subs, able to work with the electrical sub and really hone in on that actual price of the electrical work. And then just transparent invoicing. All of these things came together so that we could actually roll over nearly $400,000 from our regional well house into our Riata well house, which we are going to bring to you later this evening. The other update I wanted to provide to you is that I had the opportunity last week to attend the DBIA conference for the water and wastewater. The DBIA is the Design Build Institute of America. It's an organization which provides a lot of good information on the delivery method of design build to bring projects into existence. It basically combines the design team and the contractors into a joint venture. So it's one team contracted directly with the contractor. We've used this method on multiple projects, including our filtration program, as well as we plan to use it for the North Plant expansion. But it was a great conference. I was invited to speak on a panel which included 3 different owners as well as 2 different design build firms, and really just to understand how they looked at projects differently. It was a great opportunity. We were asked questions and we wrote our answers on whiteboards, kind of held them up and see how they compared to the contractor design build firms. It was a great opportunity to see how we looked at things differently. I included that picture in the upper left corner. That's my hair in the back there. So that was a table that I was sitting at and having great discussions about the use of contractor contingency and owner's allowance and how we balance that here at Parker Water. So really great conversations and good information. I also included a table at the bottom. I sat it on many sessions, one of them done by economists, and just showing that in the last 5 years, the cost for construction activities has increased 40%. And so when we come to you and talk about the cost of projects, and we've been looking at planning these for multiple years, and we do see those price increases, we are really fighting against escalation and inflation that has hit the construction industry hard. So I just wanted to showcase some of the things that we learned and did at this conference. Any questions?
None here. None here.
Thank you.
Good evening, directors. Our traditional email slide, I wanted to highlight when we did the evaluation and the metrics between 2024 and 2025, we have an increase of 28% in email traffic to our agency. And we started to dive into understand why do we have so much more, and we believe it's two things. One, an increase in staff and communications on projects. We're a very busy group. And then additionally, we switched over in February to a new internet service provider. And we noticed that the traffic coming through the new internet service provider had fewer filters on it. And so we see an additional load of traffic coming across that provider. We'll continue to monitor this and see if we see a significant change with the new provider and if there's any impact to cost for us, and we'll make decisions based accordingly. We're also always looking at our threat landscape, and I wanted to take the opportunity to remind you of what the ACC risk factor is. This is an indicator of the application traffic that comes across our network and what the threat potential for those applications are. Some of the applications that increase that risk factor are file sharing applications, applications prone to misuse like SFTP applications, things that try and evade our firewalls, and then also malware activity and spyware, that type of stuff. And so that 3.4 is good, but there's always room for opportunities for growth, and as we optimize and tune our firewall, we expect to see that number go down. I wanted to highlight a cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency bulletin that occurred this week. The organization is called Volt Typhoon. This is actually a third-party actor from a nation state. And for this particular instance, I wanted to talk about the open source intelligence for that. It was specifically Littleton Electric and Light and Water Department in Massachusetts. They discovered that a threat agency had exposed their systems through an attack on their firewall and had a persistent attack for over 300 days without being detected. And the reason we see these type of persistent attacks is that they went specifically to the operational technology, which is the SCADA systems, and mapped the topology for how the operational infrastructure works, and then paired that with grabbing the GIS and geospatial information and paired those together so they could then lie in wait for the need to then exploit those as a target in the future. We're starting to see more of this type of activity on the cyber espionage side as we have these persistent attacks that they don't actually notify us or have indicators of attack for long periods of time. They lie in wait so that they can exploit those facilities in the future. The implications for agencies like ours, it's commonly thought that small utilities are not an opportunistic location, where actually Volt Typhoon is targeting these type of infrastructure specifically because they don't have the resources to have the highest quality threat detection and the resources to mitigate them. So they're a target of opportunity for organizations like Volt Typhoon. Parker Water is currently evaluating and constantly updating our threat matrix, working daily to mitigate these type of things. And if you have any interest in talking further about what we are doing to mitigate these strategies, we can always have a work group or an executive session where we talk about these type of things offline.
A question? I just want to make sure I understand this. What I think you said was that they were able to identify all the components and critical pieces in the SCADA system. So on a schematic, they'd see a large pump or something like that. but then they matched that through geo,
Through our geospatial systems, so they understand where it actually lives.
so they actually then could say, okay, this is a critical pump, and we know exactly where it is, physically where it is.
Absolutely. And then they can then take control and operate those things without control of the systems. And that was
I
the
mean, it
exploit.
seems to me like they could also, sabotage the pump itself if they so choose.
That is the long-term risk for these type of persistent attacks,
Yeah.
yes.
Because we've talked about how we don't really want to disclose that location data, right? We've taken all of our maps off and all that stuff. Interesting, thank you.
Our GIS administrator, I thought this was a great image that he provided. We are moving into our utility network. We will start that process here in the next month or so. And I like this image because the way he explained it to me is we want to organize our systems. We want to increase the quality of our geospatial information organizationally. And so the disorganized binder is a semblance of the 90% quality we trust in our geospatial information, and we'd like to take that to the next level and get into the greater than 97% quality and trust in our geospatial information. And that's organizing that system and setting standards for it and controlling it. The advantage to that is that as we move into integrations with CIS and CMMS, they will all tie into our geospatial systems. And so we want to ensure that when people use all of those ancillary applications, they can know and trust the data in GIS at the same time.
Good evening, everyone. I'm back from Florida, so that was nice, but have two things for you tonight. First off, some sad news. So, as the board's aware, Janet Klink, who was a GP consultant for us. She's been here for quite a few years, passed away suddenly a couple weeks ago. A few folks here, and I'm very thankful for this too, actually went to her house to do a wellness check and discovered that she had passed away. That's never an easy thing to get through. For me, Janet and I worked together for 25 years. Excuse me. She was instrumental in setting up GP at the district. So, in addition to that sad news, we've had, not so sad, two other people resigned from the accounting department since the beginning of the year. Jeff and his team are working very hard to keep everything going, preparing for the audit, and just trying to fill the positions. But it's been tough for them too. Sorry. So with that in mind, excuse me, we gave Jeff and his team a break for February and the financial report, excuse me. And we'll be in the second meeting in April, we'll come back with the March report and just give his team a break. Secondly, maybe it's sad news too, the auditors will be in town on April 7th to start their field work. So I'll leave it with that. That's everything I have.
Question?
Yes, Don?
Yeah, Steve, the audit committee, have we looked at updating the membership on the audit committee? And we've had one member that's been pretty active, one that's kind of gone away. And I did reach out to Kyle Beard via email to see if, I mean, it seemed like it'd be a very interesting thing to him. So I didn't know if you've had any thoughts about, how you want to handle that committee going forward.
To be perfectly honest, didn't think about that, but Jeff and I will circle back tomorrow. Kyle would be another good one, I think, to have on there. So we'll check with Adam, who's been the one that hasn't been as active, see if he still wants to participate, and if not.
And I can update that. Steve was out, but I did talk to Kyle, and he's definitely interested in being on the audit committee, just to understand our district better, so.
Yeah. He actually has CPA in his email address. It's kyle.beard.cpa.
Okay, that's a great idea, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, good evening. I don't have a whole lot for you tonight. The legislature, let's get this a little closer. Is that any better?
Yep.
Yeah. The legislature is kind of at a point in the session where most of the bills are sitting in appropriations. They have about a week before they have the deadline to balance the budget. It has been extremely challenging for them to do that with $1 billion in shortfall. And so once they decide which bills will be funded, then we will know which bills they will pass. But I can give you a quick update on a couple. The House Bill 25-1106 was the one that removed the 100-gallon limit on rain barrels, and that was postponed indefinitely, which basically means it died. The turf bill, HB 25-1113, was the one that we requested an exemption for districts that do not have land use, and we did get that amendment. So that bill will go forward with districts exempted that don't do land use. The tap fee bill, House Bill 25-1211, they're still working on amendments on that one. We requested an amend position from the board, which you were okay with. And so we're just kind of keeping an eye on that to make sure that they don't add anything else into this bill. So we won't know about that one probably for at least another week. And then finally, the House Bill 1286 was the one that we talked about last week. We requested permission to take an opposing position on that from the board. And so thank you for that, because there is so much opposition to this bill that it will most likely be postponed indefinitely. And our lobbyists do feel, however, that it will resurface next session with some modifications to it. But at least for this year, we were able to see enough opposition to this bill that it's going to be postponed indefinitely.
And I wanted to give you an update. I believe it was probably 2 or 3 meetings ago. We were asked by Senator Kirkmeyer to help with a bill. And I want to make sure everyone knows what it's about. The state doesn't have a really good track record for issuing permits over the last few years. And I think last year they issued one. And it wasn't ours, but they issued one. And so it's frustrating a lot of the wastewater folks. And so the state came out with these aspirational goals that were very good. Senator Kirkmeyer asked if we, Parker Water, could put that in a more of a bill language that she can go. So we're not actually running the bill. She's running the bill. She just needed help, which I love because she's actually not our senator, but she reached out to Parker Water. So I think that in itself is a good sign. So we just put the information together as presented, and I got a message today. It's still moving forward, which is good. It's kind of late in the session. Of the 10 bullet points that we put in there for her, the committee that's going to recommend this kept 8 of them. So that's a good start. And a lot of them are just good ideas. And the one in there you may have heard me talk about before is the state is struggling because of staffing, and they got a lot of stuff coming in. And we recommended to them that they go hire consultants to work on their behalf, and then we just pay the consultant as if they're the state, and they do the work just to get their workload down. And so that's definitely in there. The other one that we asked for is the backlog be taken care of in the next 4 years. So that would be nice, and we're definitely in the backlog. I thought we were in bad shape. We asked for a permit in 2017 for the North Plant expansion that's been done for 3 years, and we still haven't got it. But there was another South Metro member that put in for a permit in 2008. And so they are very, very backlogged. And so we think this is a good bill. To their credit, the state CDPHE folks have committed to getting a bill through. So that's moving forward. It could get pushed, but the fact that it's still being talked about and it's moving forward through their process, that's a good sign. So we'll let you know how that goes.
Ron, since the bill is suggesting that the water providers or the wastewater treatment facilities pay consultants directly, then this bill would really have no cost to the state? It wouldn't add to the budget one way or another?
Well, they are asking for $700,000 plus for staffing, but the beauty of having them hire an outside consultant is we would pay for it, so that would not cost them any money. Now, you may ask, why do we have to pay? But the delays are way more expensive and cause a lot more trouble. So if we could just have consistency in getting permits and knowing what the regulations are going to be. In fact, we're going to be hiring Rebecca's team, an outside consultant for the North Plant expansion, to figure out, to tell us what they think the state's going to require. But that's becoming common practice. And so that's just kind of where we're at.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, approval of the minutes for...
Wait a minute.
Oh, wait, Bill?
Did we skip general legal counsel?
Yeah, since Jeff isn't here, we skipped general legal counsel. Okay.
I asked him to tell a good story about Jeff, but he's not doing that. So.
Okay, approval of minutes for the March 13th board meeting. Does anybody have any modifications or corrections? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have a vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Yeah. Accounts payable, March 1st to 15th. Do we have any corrections or adjustments or questions on that?
I have just a question. I noticed that we had several small invoices from Napa Auto Parts. Are we doing more of our in-house repair on vehicles now instead of sending them out to Extreme?
No, what those are probably like replacement wiper blades, windshield washer fluid, some of that type of stuff. But we haven't taken over any of the major repairs or anything like that.
That's why I was just curious on that. That's all I had.
Any other questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second?
Motion and second, we have a vote.
Yes.
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 Okay. Now, Resolution 2025-03, negotiations for Fremont Butte land purchase. This is a second reading.
So I'm just going to turn this over to Rebecca.
Great, thank you. This is the second reading, and since it's the second reading, we will be requesting action at the end of this presentation. So this resolution will give Ron, as the district manager, the authority to negotiate and execute all of the documents for the purchase of real property in Washington County, which is the location of the Fremont Butte, the proposed Fremont Butte Reservoir, for the furtherance of the Platte Valley Water Partnership. At the March 27th meeting, we sat in an executive session. We discussed the value of the property, the range at which we would be doing the negotiations in and the total budget that we believe the land purchases will require. So we will be working within those parameters. If you would like to review those numbers, they are still in the confidential memo that was provided. So at this point, I'd like to give just a quick overview of the process that we'll be going through. As we've discussed, we're using what's called the waiver valuation process. It is not the traditional process, but it is in this type of land acquisition. Basically, we are not doing an appraisal on every single property. Instead, we're basing our offers on comparable sales. The flow chart is on this slide, and it's a lot of meetings with the landowners. The first one is going to be with our land agent, and that's actually something that Heather's going to be bringing forward next on the agenda. And through these meetings, we're really going to develop that offer packet. Within that offer packet, it's going to have all the normal maps and closing documents and things like that, but it's also going to address other things that we're going to negotiate. Those things include other improvements on the land. It could be new wells, gates, fences, also incentives. The idea might be that we increase the offer price if they close within a certain number of days. And then offer additions, things like lease back the property until the construction actually starts, or getting an easement over the buffer as opposed to purchasing it outright. So these things will all be included in that offer packet. And then lastly, we still are working under the schedule that we really want to focus on the properties of the dam site itself to start. So using this spring to start those landowner meetings, and then in the summer really having that offer packet ready, and then being able to close on a few of these properties in the fall. And then knowing that this is going to go into 2026 with some of the properties further to the south in the actual reservoir footprint. And so at this point, I'd like to ask if there's any questions.
I have none. Anybody else? You have some down? You're keeping your mouth shut.
No, of course I do. Yeah, I probably going to land on a question in the end, but I did want to just make a few comments about where we're at on this. I think it's important to kind of stop and take stock of what's happening here. This is a big step.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very big step. But, you know, we've been working on this since 2019, right, when we signed the original agreement. You know, so we're going on 6 years. And over those 6 years, we've authorized a lot of engineering projects and studies and cost studies, conceptual designs. So I think we've been pretty deliberate about getting to where we are. And each of those years, we've had, you know, items in the capital budget. You know, so the board's had the opportunity every year to look at what's in the capital and continue to push this project forward. You know, at the same time, you know, nothing really viable as an option has really presented itself to us. And it's not like we're not looking. I think everybody's got their eyes out. Ron's got his eyes out, you know, even in the middle of the night, probably sometimes, you know, trying to see, you know, if there's something else that's there. You know, there's 34 water providers in Douglas County. Every one of them, I shouldn't say every one of them, the major ones, you know, are trying their best to find renewable supplies. If you watch the Dominion presentation at the Water Commission, it looks to me like a very labored, hard, risky effort for them to try and just get 4,000 acre feet for a total delivery, including building a diversion on the South Platte, you know, downstream of Strontia. So it's a big swing for them. And I would say we should never give up our openness to looking for alternative strategies. Something might come along, but hope is not a good strategy. So I think we've got to look at this pretty hard. A kind of I won't say defining moment, but a really strong action that happened that I guess I would say really helped cement my commitment was Castle Rock joining this project. This is I mean, they're a major utility too. They're smart, they're aggressive, they're searching the world for water. And, you know, the other thing, when you think about Castle Rock being in the project, you look at the two communities that build out. We're talking about a project to serve, and I understand the proportions are a little bit different, but to serve, you know, potentially 300,000 people. So, you know, it's big, but it needs to be big, right? There's a lot to do. Another interesting number of, you know, the Lower South Platte, you know, they stand to benefit from this too. There's 406,000 irrigated acres in the Lower South Platte Valley. So when you look at the two of us combined, and the bigness of this project, and I say again, it has to be big. So, you know, the water rights, that's, you know, we've been watching that unfold. What an effort that is. We saw the 3,400 pages that you gave us to read. You know, so, I mean, that captures, you know, it maybe sounds a little silly, but it captures the essence of the project. And so we know what we're in for. And that's a big backbone piece, the water rights. I think securing this reservoir location is also another big backbone piece. And we heard at the last meeting, you know, when we did the review with the Lower South Platte and Castle Rock people, about how there are just not, you know, many places to go build a reservoir out there. But everybody, including Denver Water and Greeley and Aurora and Northern Water, they're all looking out there saying, we need storage on the Lower South Platte. That's where the unappropriated water is. That's where we need to be. So that was kind of a long way to get to saying I support this project. I support this resolution. The question I would ask is, we have had conversations with Ron about forming an authority, you know, to ultimately, I think, own the land and run the project. So it's not a caveat that I would add to the resolution, but I'm certainly going to continue to look at you and say, when are we going to do this? I think it's really important. I think it, you know, spreads the risk somewhat, and I think that's important to our ratepayers. So those are the comments I just wanted to make in advance. So thank you.
Very good. Any other thoughts?
This is a huge project, obviously, but we have to do it. We're obligated to provide water not only to our residents today, but our future residents. And I don't see anything else on the horizon that can come close. And the fact that Castle Rock has joined us, I believe too, as we get closer, you're going to have other entities that are going to want to participate. Maybe not in the initial phases, but later on, people are going to want to sign on to this. You know, it's the old adage, if you build it, they will come. And I really think so. So there's going to be more participants down the road, maybe not in the next 5 years, but down the road it's going to be there. And, you know, I think we'd be remiss if we don't do this project.
Robert?
I'm in favor of it.
Robert, do you have any thoughts?
I do. You know, I absolutely recognize the obligation and, you know, certainly how important it is to look to the future and make sure we're taking the steps today to provide for, you know, future needs. And you know, something like this is a massive lift, and there's a lot of components, a lot of elements that are associated with it. I'm not convinced at this point in time that that we've accounted for the some of the risks associated with this. I think there's a number of things that we need to you know, at least identify and understand. We may not be able to identify everything, but certainly I think you know, when we look at something this large and all the other components and things that add into it, there is a tremendous amount of risk. And I am, at this point, I'm not convinced that it's been fully addressed and looked at. I've seen a lot of information, but you know, the needs and looking forward and what needs to happen, I absolutely understand. But at this point, I have a lot of I guess concern about, you know, taking too many steps forward without really analyzing some of the potential unknowns, at least putting some type of mitigation towards those, and what it looks like for you know, costs for the folks in our district currently. I think we owe it to them to make sure we're taking the right steps, and we can put as much in front of them as possible so they understand what this looks like. I don't think anybody argues with the fact that we have to plan for the future and make sure we cover it as best we can. I'm just, you know, fearful that we're running at this point too fast without actually understanding all of the risks, at least in terms of what we can define. And so I'm not saying I'm opposed to this at all. I'm just I'm concerned about some of the analysis and data that we currently have. Thank you, Marla.
And I would, just to back up on what Robert just said, I agree there's lots and lots of risk as well. And I think the cost, I think the risk is huge and the amount of money. And I think putting it more in front of the public, letting them see on the cost and make sure it is going to be a successful deal. So.
Okay, my perspective is very simple, that this and the diversion structure are the two showstoppers to make it impossible to do the Platte Valley project. Without those, it's dead. Other things, be it right-of-way locations, be it location of forebays, other things, they're flexible, they can be adjusted. But the reservoir location and the diversion structure aspect, those are showstoppers if we don't do them. We've already got the land for the diversion structure. If we move forward on the reservoir location land, we've got land. And so the risk, if for some odd reason the project doesn't go forward, the land is a saleable asset. And so I see very little risk on this step in the process. But to not do it leaves us totally exposed, and particularly if Aurora or Denver or some other water district decides that that is about the only location for storage in the area, then the project becomes SOL. And we're looking at the water resources, renewable water, for the next 100 years, for our district, for Douglas County, really. And so this, to me, is, and I acknowledge that there are many risks in the project, despite the 1,000 pages or so you guys already sent out to us. But there's always risks that are not totally defined, and as we go along, we'll have to accept those risks or modify the design to deal with those risks. But to me, this step is absolutely critical, and it must be taken in order to ensure that the project can go forward. And I think there's very little downside to it, and there's tremendous upside. The downside is if we don't act to acquire that land at this point. So that said, any other questions, any other thoughts from the board?
Yeah, Marla, if I could, I've just got one more thing I want to mention. Thank you for bringing it up about the potential land purchases. One of the areas that does concern me is with let's say a land purchase, and I've heard the argument that if let's buy it now, and if we run into a fatal flaw in the future, we can always sell it back, so it lowers our risk. I have heard numbers like, okay, we buy it today, we can always sell it back maybe at 60% what we purchased for, and so our risk is only 40% of the initial value. That causes me great concern in terms of, I think that, you know, a land purchase with the backdrop of, well, if we run into a fatal flaw, we can always sell it. And we may not, you know, get back what we initially put into it. To me, that in itself is a fatal flaw in the approach in this strategy. So that's a concern. Again, I'm not opposed at all to making sure we're looking out for the future. We have to. But putting a potential, buying a potential property and with the thought of, okay, well, if we do run into a fatal flaw and we have to move away from that or something different, and, you know, the fallback is, well, we can always resell it, and we may not be able to resell it for what we purchased it for. And I heard the number of 40%. Well, that's a 40% loss that the folks in our district have to absorb. So that's all. Thank you.
Any other comments, Don?
Comment? Yeah, I appreciate Robert's comments about, you know, there's a risk that the investment that we're making today, and I think we've pegged that at about $13 million or $12 to $13 million that we expect that we might pay. You know, is certainly the funds that are right in front of us that in some period of time down the road could be exposed. But it's also not unprecedented for us to own land in the lower South Platte. I mean, we own farms up there right now today, and those farms show up on our books as an asset. They're actually revenue producing. There's 14,000 acre feet of water rights, I think, is the number associated with that land. We have the Haystack property, which we bit the bullet on that and said, pivotal piece of property. I mean, to Merlin's point, you know, if we don't go ahead and take the risk of buying this land, or make, I'll say, the positive step of positioning ourselves, the whole project's at risk. I mean, it's like, where are you going to build the reservoir if you don't build it here? And so I think it's a risk that, you know, maybe our ratepayers would expect us to take that. I mean, in the survey that we did some time ago, Deirdre did over line, I mean, 80% of the response, I think it was a number like that, the ratepayers said, we trust you to find our future supplies. I think they're looking at us to weigh the risk, think about it, evaluate it. I think we've been pretty deliberate, and I guess expect us to make a decision here that's overall in their best interest. So this doesn't mean the project's on the rails and we're down the road yet. I mean, there's a lot of work still to come, but very pivotal first step or second step maybe, or third. So I think it's something we should do.
And if I can add, it's actually pivotal to buy this project now so there's not a fatal flaw later. As we go through the NEPA permitting process, one of the keys there is to actually own the land where you're going to build the reservoir. And that permitting process is starting very soon. And so once we get that water right, we go right into the permitting process. And having that land is, excuse me, is essential to going through that permitting process. So I would hate for the risk to be that because we don't have the land, we get hung up in that permitting process. So for me, there's a risk in not buying the property.
Yeah, thank you.
An additional comment, Marilyn, if I may. With all due respect, that justification even makes me more concerned, and I think it supports my position. And you know, I was concerned starting this, and I have to admit that I'm even more concerned now when we start talking about the NEPA and the permit process and what that looks like. Thank you.
Any other thoughts? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Resolution 2025-03. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have a vote?
Yes.
Yes?
No.
No.
Yes.
Okay, Resolution 2025-03 passes. Request for approval, buyer's agency contract, Fremont Butte land purchase.
So I would like to invite Heather Justice up. She has been working on this contract, and we'll present that to you this evening.
Good evening. I'm happy to be here tonight to request your approval for a buyer's agent agreement with Rec Agra Realty and Auction for the purchase of Fremont Butte Reservoir land acquisition. To help us negotiate the land purchases, it is prudent to have a buyer's agent that the district trusts and that the local community knows and also trusts. REC is specifically and uniquely situated to build the bridge that we need to further the Platte Valley project. REC has acted as a land agent for the district for the farms, negotiating and managing the farm leases. In addition, he has acted as the buyer's agent for the Haystack property. He helps oversees and maintains the farms and our properties and helps restore them as well. I wanted to provide a little bit of information about Mark Reck and Brenda Huss. They are the two that we work with the most, and provide some of the testimonials from the community, from the Northeast community. Mark is shown here. I've worked with him since coming on board with the district. He is very pleasant, and he understands what is happening with in the community. He understands how we need to manage land and how to communicate that. And then Brenda keeps us advised on when we need to take actions for the boards that we are on and the ditch companies. And she helps us manage our invoicing for the farms. Mark has explained to us that many of these landowners have had these properties for generations. These are generational legacy properties, and it is very emotional for them to sell this property. And he is uniquely positioned so that he can have those conversations and help them transition into something new and different than what they had originally thought. I think that one of these right here, this one, our farm has been in the family for 65 years, so we had a strong sense of grief, thinking we were selling our family legacy. And Mark and his team understood what we were going through. I think these testimonies really help to define the type of company that Rec Agra is. Just a reminder of where the properties are located. They're approximately 8.5 miles northwest of Akron, Colorado, in Washington County. Right up here. So what does a buyer's agency contract do? Well, one of the things that they first help us do is they help negotiate terms with the landowners. So if you remember the waiver land valuation chart that Rebecca had shown, he's the first contact with the landowners. And we have had contact with the landowners doing the studies that we've done and the relationships that we've built. But Mark will be the key person to help negotiate these. Then he'll help us develop the offer packets based on those meetings and then complete the closing documents. The terms are 3% success fee with each closing, with interim to be paid $350 per hour to be deducted from the commission at the end of the successful sale. Right now, our budget for our land acquisition appropriations for from 2024 through 2026 is $6.3 million, and the estimated fees range between $300,000 to $390,000. Do you have any questions?
No questions here. Robert, any questions?
I have none, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Our request tonight is to ask for your approval to contract with Rec Agri Realty in Action to provide buyer agency services to assist with the purchase.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? And we have a second. We have a vote?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
No?
Yeah, I'm going to say no since I voted no on the last one.
Okay. Motion passes. Request for approval, Riata North.
Sorry, for our notes, we didn't, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, no.
Okay. Request for approval, Riata North Well House. Contract amendment number 7.
So this evening, Alex Zafranco is going to present this request for approval to you for the Riata Well House modifications. And he's using a handheld because our microphones are short and he is very tall.
Okay, thank you. Like Rebecca said, my name is Alex Zafranco. Wanted to give a little bit of background on the filtration program. So back in 2015, we did an analysis on some of the higher contributors of iron and manganese loading in our distribution system. After that study, we found that Riata North, Regional, and Reuter Hess were the 3 highest as far as pounds per million gallon produced, and those were the 3 higher producing well houses in our system. One of the main reasons why Riata North is a really important part of the filtration program is it's the final one. So we have 4 filtration annexes right now in our district, and then this will be the 5th one, which will create an equitable treatment for all the ratepayers. So basically, that one area of our distribution system is the last remaining zone to not receive filtered water. So back in 2021, we worked with Garney and Tetra Tech in a design bid build to construct canyons in Ridgegate well houses. At the end of 2021, we went out to bid and received 3 bids for the remainder of the filtration program for the Reuter Hess well house, with the option to continue that contract for the remaining well houses, so Regional and Riata North. And that contract was awarded to Garney and Tetra Tech in December of 2021. So then Reuter Hess came online in July of 2023, and then Regional came online December of 2024. And then the goal is to have Riata North online by May of 2026. As far as Riata North Filtration Annex, so it's located within the Tallman Park. The annex itself will be just east of Riata Well House. This location, it being inside of a park, presents a lot of different constructability challenges. There's quite a bit of regrading that needs to be done. We'll also are pretty limited as far as the laydown area of where we can stage equipment during construction, given that it's a park. And also, we're required to bore underneath Tallman Gulch to the nearest sewer line, which is just north of that tree line north of the well house. So that's a little bit why the cost is so high for Riata North based on its the amount of water that's being filtered there. So contract amendment number 7, what that consists of is finishing the design for Riata North Well House. The construction of it, it'll have 1 gravity filter with 2 cells for a total capacity of 2.2 MGD. There will be a brand new building that goes along with that, all of the piping and appurtenances that go with the filtration. We'll also be doing some modifications to the chemical storage now and some upsizing. And the contract also consists of construction administration and services during construction. So this slide just shows all of the previous amendments. So how we did it was we had a contract in 2023, I believe, for the pre-construction of Regional and Riata North. And then amendments 1 through 6 so far have been in relation to the regional construction. And so then amendment number 7 will be for the construction of Riata North. A brief overview of the schedule. Ideally, we'll have the design completed by May of this year. Site work will begin in July, and then ideally the filtration will be online by May of 2026, so just right before peak demand season next year. So this contract, or previously we've spent $414,000 on the pre-construction and design of Riata North, and that was part of that 2023 contract. And then amendment number 7, the total amount is $10,065,722, and that'll be for completing the pre-construction of Riata North and then the construction phase services for the facility. And that number does not include an owner-managed contingency. Any questions?
Questions?
What area will this serve? So what homes and so on?
Generally, so just east of Parker Road, north of Hilltop, that all of the residents that are
Like in the canyons?
It's
and
a canyon.
It's not the it's in our what we would call our Zone 2 East area, and so it's actually not hydraulically connected to where the water plant serves. And so this zone actually doesn't have any filtration in it right now, so it's kind of where Legend High School is and in that area. So it really does benefit the district, and it actually adds value to the filtration we've done earlier because it creates that whole system that has filtered water in it.
Yeah, I can add a little color to that. This is all in the Riata North Metro District. Happen to sit on the board for the Riata North Metro District. The community on the other side of Tallman Gulch, those homes you're seeing, is Idlewild, the Idlewild neighborhood. Kind of the question and comment I would have is you're going to have to bore under Tallman Gulch, which means I'm digging big holes on each side of it and going down and boring in. On the north side of Tallman Gulch, it certainly appears that you're going to need an easement from the Idlewild Master Association because that land is owned by Idlewild Masters Track Q. And so there's a lot of work to do there. I was aware of that because I got an email from a Jenna Barker, and I thought, well, I know this name, right? So I think, that I think it's just a question of execution. I mean, part of that is Tallman Meadows Park, part of it is Parker Open Space, the other part's Idlewild Master Association. So I think all three entities are going to be fine with an easement, and anxious to see the work done.
Yeah, and this is very common practice for us. I don't know if we ever do a project that we're not trying to acquire an easement from some HOA. So we've worked diligently with the town of Parker, reaching out to the HOAs as well. And I do want to thank Alex, because Jenna Barker was actually our original project manager on this and had a lot of the history of the project. And Alex has done an amazing job of gaining that knowledge and that history and progressing the project to completion. So a big thank you to Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that name and I'm like, wow, I know that name, and gives me a lot of comfort.
Yeah.
It really does. So,
Any other questions?
Robert, any questions?
No, none, thank you.
Okay, seeing none. Contract amendment, I guess it's an action item, so do we have a motion?
so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. Do we have a vote? Yes,
Yes.
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 that passes. Informational discussion on employee retention rate.
Okay, I want to introduce Amy Schramm. She's our HR manager. And, I was going to say, she does an outstanding job, and a lot of her work you guys don't see. But I thought, well, I need to give an example of what I mean by outstanding job. So, Amy, many years ago, I said, I'd love to have you create a network of HR managers in the Douglas County area and beyond, so you can have this group to ask questions. It's just nice to have. And so she's done that, and for years now, she has this group, and she helps shepherd them, and they meet on a quarterly basis, and they talk through ideas. And when we need help on rate studies or salary surveys or whatever, she has this team, and I think it's been very helpful for us. So I just appreciate Amy and all she does. It's a hard job. It's not one that I would ever wish on anybody, but she does a fantastic job, and we're very thankful. So it's all yours, Amy.
Thanks, Ron. All right. Well, I am happy to report on our retention or turnover rate from 2024. And as you see up here, we significantly reduced our turnover rate from 23 to 24 by over half. We had 6 separations up from the district, and that went down from 13 from last year. This resulted in a 5.49% turnover rate for us. And comparatively, since 2022, we have reduced it by half almost every single year. And then I have, like Ron had mentioned, I had reached out to my HR peers to try to get what their turnover rates were for the past 4 years. And as you can see in that turnover rate by region and industry, that is what our peers are experiencing throughout the years as well. So we are doing significantly better than what our peers are this year or for last year. I did take out those separations, and I categorized them in 3 separate categories, and it's reasons why we had these 6 separations. Half of those separations was due to another reason that we put out there. This is more of the disciplinary or personal reasons as to why people had left the district. We had 2 of the people that separated for us leave for other job opportunities. I broke those down to the tenure as well. And so overall, our tenure that we lost over all 6 separations resulted in just over two years as an average tenure for the separations. So we kind of went back and tried to figure out why we had such a significant decrease. And at the beginning of the year, we had conducted an employee satisfaction survey. And you probably also remember that at the beginning of the year, we were also experiencing learning how to live in this new building. And it kind of showed through that survey that there was a lot of angst that came out of learning how to live within the building. And so one of the factors that came out of the survey was the security issues that everybody was concerned about. We still had contractors that were working within the building. They were still putting on the final touches, And it kind of made people a little bit uneasy to not know who was in our building, if they were allowed in our building. And so through the security team and through our safety coordinator, we built a protocol on building different lanyards and identification to show that they are allowed into the building and they were supposed to be here. One of the other trainings that we implemented was a run, hide, fight. We dealt with Douglas County Sheriff's Department as well as our safety coordinator to develop some of those trainings as well. Another issue that we addressed was the workspaces and work environment that the employees were dealing with. There was a lot of glare issues, sunlight that was coming in areas that they weren't expecting. And so we brought in an ergonomics assessment and came in and we dealt with those issues as well. One of the other things that we addressed is later in the year, we had shown that there was an operator pay. Our utilities and other municipalities were offering significant pay increases for their operators, and so we did a compensation analysis and realized that we needed to increase their salary ranges as well as hourly rates. So we implemented that. And as you probably remember, I came to you last year as well as to include the holiday pay as overtime. And that helped not only district-wide, but it also helped with our operators when they were on call to provide them more pay in that. So we're going to continue just working on our survey results and just communicate with the employees on how we can build a better environment for us going into this year. So any questions on that? All right.
How do you keep your finger on the pulse of, I mean, these operators are really key individuals. How do you keep your finger on that pulse of what's the pay that they should be getting and, you know, what we want to offer?
It really came out last year. We were talking to the supervisors. We had a lot of meeting with the supervisors. There's a lot of employees that will look at other districts and provide us that information. It's a trust but verify kind of situation as we go out and look at those job postings. We contact, you know, their HR department if we have that ability to do so, and just kind of, you know, really investigate.
Okay, thank you.
Director Langley, one thing, you know, every year, Amy and Aaron go out and they look. Anyway, they do a survey, and we used to get more information from the Employers Council, not so much anymore. The operations thing was an anomaly that popped up going into the year, and I think we had a couple communities around us that were really having a hard time hiring them, and they just raised the rates, and then everyone had to follow through. But this year, and we found out our folks in the SCADA department are also low. So Amy is going to hire an outside consultant to help us look at our job descriptions, make sure they're exactly what we're after, and reevaluate that, hopefully in time for the 2026 budget. So we tend to do that every 3+ years, but we're going to get it done this year. Just things are moving a lot right now, so we'll see where we're at.
Yeah. Thank you.
I would suggest that the low turnover rate is at least partially, substantially related to the culture that you've built here as a team. And anytime you're in a growing situation, there's about a 5% excitement factor in there that kind of makes you want to come to work because there's always something. I mean, look at the list of stuff we touched on tonight already. Mm-hmm. There's an excitement in growth and things happening, and if you continue to capture that in the culture, I think you're going to see that turnover rate stay down.
Yeah, I agree.
We want to be the place that people want to come to.
Absolutely. Yep. Agree.
Well, and I love that narrative, but it worries me if next year's high, what happened to the culture, right? So we try to look into it. I think what's interesting, and we can't, it's hard to put your finger on it, but the tenure was just a little over 2 years. So then it makes me think, we hired someone the last couple of years and they left. Is there something we can do there as well? But yeah, I think there's a lot to do with culture. But there's a lot of people moving out there right now.
Marla, I'd
Yes.
make a comment.
Yes, please.
I think this tells a great story, and there's even, if you drill down in some of the numbers even further, I mean, with turnover rate, what it is, it tells a great story about the culture. It tells a great story about the leadership. I wish I could see you all, but the folks sitting in the room and what that translates to, but also even some of the hidden costs that are saved by lowering your turnover rate, and it's something that's kind of hard to put a number on, but we all know it's a real number, that when you don't have to hire new people, go through the training, and all those elements that are tied to it. This is just a really good story, and I think it's definitely a compliment to the district's leadership that we have, the folks sitting here in the room today. So, well done. This is really, really good stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Just one last question. The average for 2024 was 109. Are we at about 112 right now? Is that the number?
No, we're actually 118, I think.
We are about a 113.
113.
114, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
No more questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for
you,
your
Amy.
good job. Okay. That's the end of the agenda. Seeing, Ron, you have something?
Nope, okay.
You had that look on your face like you
Yeah.
really want that microphone. So, okay, that said, meeting adjourned.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all. Good night.